We're live. We're live. Just doing another episode of just watching, reacting to Trunews. This is my first time seeing today's episode. So we'll just watch it and go from here. 1 second. Let me well, I can pull that up while this is playing. Let me go ahead and start this.
This is True News, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us God. I'm Rick Wiles. Here are today's top headlines. 203,000 Russians attended a patriotic rally in support of Vladimir Putin in the war in Ukraine. Arnold Schwarzenegger invoked his Nazi father in a message to Russians to oppose Mr. Putin. A grand jury is expected to indict Hunter Biden over corruption in Ukraine. And Laura Logan unloaded on a TV news program about deep state agenda in Ukraine. Get ready.
Wow.
For the news program that has been reporting uncensored news since 1999. Welcome.
Speaking of censored, if they get into, the stupid 19 stuff, I might have to stop it and censor it myself because, they got kicked off of YouTube a long time ago. Back, I think a little bit after when Alex Jones got kicked off the platform. And this is what happened when you report the truth. So if ever they get into stuff that I know they're going to act funny with over here at YouTube, I'll fast forward through that part. And if it is topics like this, I don't shy away from these topics. I do talk about these topics on my platform, on Patreon, where, believe it or not, I haven't been censored at all on Patreon, which I can't believe. But I know I hear about people being censored over there all the time. But I've been putting up stuff, a whole bunch of stuff on Stupid 19 and a whole bunch of other stuff that normally would get blocked on YouTube. It haven't been getting blocked on Patreon, so check out my Patreon there. Also, check out my link in the description for my Patreon. My link tree is there with links to my Patreon. Sorry, and also my I'm trying to do like 3 things at the same time here. Also, check out my merch store that has my it has Let's Go Brandon t-shirts, I Will Not Comply t-shirts, all types of t-shirts there, and it's all made here in-house. So each purchase that you make, it goes to fund what we're doing here, which is basically reacting to news. I also report on news. I got democrapublics.com where I write articles and stuff over there, so check that out. All of that is linked in my link tree, so check all that stuff out. I'm just trying to fix something on my channel. I just noticed that it doesn't have a comma after 203,000 and it's bugging me, so I'm fixing that right now. All right, save. All right, I fixed that, and let's go ahead and get started with this. Let me exit this out so it shouldn't be any more interruptions. All right. Here we go. Let's go ahead and play this.
The True News. Well, on yesterday's program, Doc, we talked about psyops and propaganda, psychological warfare.
Yes.
And 2 of the things that we discussed yesterday, in the one article, it was a Fox News article, they interviewed a deep stater who said that psyops needs, that the U.S. and Western countries need to up the amount of psyops against Russia, including using VPNs to bypass internet roadblocks and get videos into Russia that would refute the Russian government narrative about what's going on in Ukraine and tell the American government's narrative to the people in Ukraine. And so that in that article, Doc, they were talking about how the Western psyops needs to change the thinking of the Russian people.
To purposely do that.
Particularly young Russians.
It's crazy that they actually admit that. It's crazy they actually admit that, though. I mean,
one day later, and what do we have? Arnold Schwarzenegger, former governor of California and movie star, released a video in which he spoke to the Russian people in an emotional message. And in this,
I'm going to be vaping too, so if you see me with my head down, smoking my vape pen, just to let y'all know.
Emotional message, he actually brought up the name of his dead father, who himself was a Nazi.
Yes. Yes, and this is the headline in the LA Times today. Arnold Schwarzenegger invokes Nazi father.
But, and he has, and Arnold Schwarzenegger has paintings all through his house, of Nazi stuff. It's crazy. Gore, he loves gore and stuff. Like, people don't know this stuff about Arnold Schwarzenegger.
In plea to Russian people, I don't want you to be broken. Now, I'm going to ask you, Rick. Now, everyone says, and even Arnold says, that this message was for the Russian people. Was it for the Russian people?
Well, that's an interesting question. You think it's for the Nazis?
I think it was for propaganda against American people.
That's interesting.
And the reason why I say that is how many Russians are actually going to see this?
We don't know.
I mean, Facebook's been shut down. Twitter's been shut down. They're blocking IPs from the U.S. in Russia. So who is the real audience? The majority of people watching this today are going to be people on Facebook, people on Twitter, because this video has been going out all day long.
So why is he addressing, in a roundabout way, what's the propaganda message to the American people?
The propaganda, well, he's building up how brave the Ukrainians are and how they're, fighting for freedom and everything. And Mr. Schwarzenegger goes through the whole process. My father was lied to as a Nazi, and you Russians are being lied to.
Oh,
but I think it was more of a reinforcement to a Western audience than to a Russian audience. The Russians aren't watching this. Russians don't care what Arnold Schwarzenegger has to say.
His father was an officer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe in the SS.
Yes.
Yes.
If I recall. Now, the one thing that stands out in my mind, and if we can put that Los Angeles Times article back up on the screen, because this is today's LA Times. Schwarzenegger invokes Nazi father in plea to Russian people. Why this means something to me, Doc, is in the early days of Trunews, back in the early 2000s, when Schwarzenegger was governor of California, or I think he was governor at that time.
When he was clothed as a Republican.
Yes, and they were talking about him being president of the United States, but he couldn't because he wasn't born in the United States.
Right.
And there was talk of amending the Constitution to allow him to run for president.
I remember that.
But when I would bring up on Trunews that Schwarzenegger's father was a Nazi officer,
Yes.
I was slammed, I was smeared. Republicans were furious with me. The media, I was dismissed as a crazy conspiracy theorist. Who are you to say Schwarzenegger's father was a Nazi?
When it's true.
When it's true. But
true,
now,
yeah.
it's cool to say, my father
admitted.
was a Nazi. That's what I see in this, Doc. We have reached a point in the United States
where you can embrace your Nazism.
You can embrace your Nazi heritage.
It's okay to admit that you're a Nazi now in the United States. Well, your heritage, I should say. That's a great point. It's crazy. It's crazy. He wouldn't talk about it. He wouldn't admit it for years, and now all of a sudden he's admitting it. That's a great point. That's where we are now.
Think about that.
So we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose father was a Nazi, defending the Nazi takeover of Ukraine.
Yes, and attacking Putin for denazifying Ukraine.
Yes, that's where we're at today.
The real
Bizarro
purpose of Schwarzenegger's
world.
propaganda video is to slow down the Russian military offensive against the Nazis. We're still fighting the Nazis.
Yes.
And by the way, I wish all the Nazis that write to, I wish you people would just go away, get saved, get your life right with God. You need to
Amen.
believe on the name of Jesus Christ. It blows me away, Doc. They are Nazi defenders.
Yes.
They're Hitler lovers. They write.
They're on chat every day.
They're probably there right now, you know, and they attack us. It's just like, it blows my mind that there are people who defend Nazis and Adolf Hitler. I can't even grasp that. Okay, they think Hitler was the good guy in World War II. But anyhow, right now Nazis are cool in the United States. The LA Times is telling us it's okay.
It's okay
If your dad was a Nazi.
That's so sad. That's terrible that's where we are right now. That's a sad state that we're in. And it's only going to get worse. I don't see it getting any better yet.
Where for years he purposely distanced himself from that. But today in this video, he talks about it.
Okay.
Now he frames it in such a way, my father was lied to, he was deceived, and he's saying, you Russians are being deceived the same way. But I would make the argument that the same Nazis are still deceiving today. They're deceiving in Ukraine, they're deceiving in the West, they're deceiving here in the U.S. It's the same Nazis.
Yes, Doc, another one that I used to talk about, and there was a lot of rumors that Karl Rove, the Republican campaign strategist for George W. Bush, there was a lot of talk in the early 2000s during the W years when Bush was in the White House that Karl Rove's father was a Nazi.
Right, I still remember pictures of Karl Rove, and they put him in a Nazi.
I never heard that. I never heard that about Karl Rove. Wow. I knew something about this dude I didn't trust.
SS uniform and everything, making that correlation and stuff.
And that his last name was not Rove. It was changed, like so many Nazis do, when they are brought into the United States or Canada, like Freeland in Canada. But I wouldn't be surprised that George W. Bush's campaign advisor had a Nazi heritage because George W. Bush's grandfather helped finance the Third Reich. Prescott Bush was
a banker, and he funded both sides. The Bushes funded both sides of the war, and that's what people don't understand. We have these people on Democrats. We have Democrats, and we have Republicans, and it's sad because they really don't. They don't really pay attention to the left-right paradigm. They're the elitists. I mean, the globalists. They care about war. Look at the Skull and Bones. It's all about war. The military-industrial complex. That's how they make their money. And we have to be in perpetual war. It's a perpetual war party that's together. It doesn't matter if they got an R next to their name or a D next to their name.
The U.S. government came against him in the early years of World War II, and they seized, I think, 3 or 4 Bush family-owned corporations, charged them with trading with the enemy.
Yes.
The Bush family made money on Nazi Germany before the start of World War II, and actually during World War II, after the United States of America got into the war. So there's a Nazi heritage with a lot of the elite. You know, we can get into Klaus Schwab, and I mean, it just goes on. And
Carl Schwab, he's the one that wrote the Great Reset. And I've done a few videos on the Great Reset. If you go to my channel and just type in Great Reset, I'm pretty sure it'll pop up. I've done a few videos on what that is, and Carl Schwab and George Soros, and how all of them are working together, and these elites are working together, and they the ones that fund these wars because they benefit and make so much money from these wars.
The founder of Bilderberg, Nazis. Okay, this goes on and on and on. The Nazis were not defeated. They just stopped goose stepping and wearing uniforms.
Well, they even wear the uniforms in some places too, like in Ukraine. They have the SS patches and everything. And just like you said the other day, Rick, now there's good hate speech and bad hate speech. There's good Nazis and bad Nazis now too, okay? So you want to be associated with the good Nazis. The good Nazis right now are fighting for freedom in Ukraine. And so...
this just blows me away, Doc, that there's so many conservative Americans who call themselves patriots and Christians are backing the Nazis in Ukraine.
So sad.
And we were talking about it before the program started. I just read an article on Fox News where there are gun drives in America. Conservatives are having gun collection drives to send guns to Ukraine to arm the Nazis.
I wouldn't be surprised if there are churches doing that.
So instead of bringing cans of soup to church for a humanitarian effort, now people are bringing guns to be shipped to Ukraine, and they don't realize they're going to Nazis. They really are Nazis in the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian government. This is not a joke. They really are Nazis, and they're proud of being Nazis, and they fly swastika flags, and they have the SS insignia on their uniforms, and they all know they're Nazis. And when the Canadian government was training Nazi soldiers, they deliberately covered it up so it wouldn't get in the news, because they said it would look very bad if Canadian soldiers were seen training soldiers wearing Nazi uniforms.
Right.
Look, the Nazis are still here, and we're under. I'm not going to go down this road, but there'll be people that throw out, well, Rick, the president of Ukraine is Jewish. Zelensky is Jewish. All right. Well, let me tell you, Zionists and Nazis worked hand in hand before World War II and during World War II.
And that's the truth.
Okay. Read the transfer agreements. Find out about the millions of dollars Hitler sent to Palestine to finance the Zionist takeover of Palestine. The Nazis and the Zionists. I didn't say the Jews, I said the Zionists. The Zionists were working hand in hand with Hitler. Okay. The Likud party in Israel, its predecessor in the late 40s, at the time of the 1948 revolution takeover, military takeover of Palestine, Albert Einstein, a Jew, warned the New York Times and Harry Truman, don't let Menachem Begin come into the United States.
And why, Rick?
Because he's a fascist, and his political party is based on fascism, Nazism. Okay? And his party became the Likud party. He became the prime minister. He's the one that gave Jerry Falwell a jet. Nazis. So I'm just blown away.
I had no idea about that. With Jerry Falwell got a jet from him. Wow. That's crazy.
That there's so many conservatives and patriots and Christians who just weeks ago were still fighting COVID propaganda.
Yes.
And now they got sucked into the Nazi propaganda, and they're all the way in.
They're right at the troughs, just laughing.
They are.
So
the Nazis got them back. And you were fighting the Nazis for 2 years about COVID and the vaccines. And then, like I said, the Nazis just took the remote control, changed the channel from COVID propaganda to war propaganda. And man, the conservatives just a hot dog, there's going to be a war. Man, what is it about the conservatives? They love war.
And I've
never seen anything like it. how many people want war so bad. What's up, Copper Skies? Copper Skies said it's about protecting the world order, and Russia is a loose cannon, literally. The global elites don't care who their allies are or what they call themselves, as long as they defend their interests. And that is so true. That's what it's all about defending their interests. They're all they're all in it together to make money, and they don't care about what wars they have to start to make it.
They do, because we're driven by a foreign policy that's based on a false Bible doctrine.
Yes.
And so, anyway.
And we're going to show that a little bit later here. Okay, so I want to show you some clips from Arnold Schwarzenegger's propaganda video that was released.
I'm sending this message through various different channels to reach my dear Russian friends and the Russian soldiers serving in Ukraine. I'm speaking to you today because there are things that are going on in the world that are being kept from you. Terrible things that you should know about. But before I talk about the harsh realities, let me just tell you about the Russian who became my hero. In 1961, when I was 14 years old, a very good friend of mine invited me to come to Vienna and to watch the World Weightlifting Championships. I was in the audience when Yuri Petrovich Vlasov won the World Championship title, becoming the first human being to lift 200 kilograms over his head. And somehow a friend of mine got me backstage. All of a sudden there was a 14-year-old boy standing in front of the strongest man in the world. I couldn't believe it. He reached out to shake my hand. I mean, I still had a boy's hand. He had this powerful man's hand that swallowed mine. But he was kind, and he smiled at me. I will never forget that day. Never. I went home and I put his photo above my bed to inspire me when I started lifting weights. My father told me to take down that picture and to find a German or an Austrian hero. He got really angry, and we argued back and forth. He didn't like Russians because of his experience in the Second World War. You see, he was injured at Leningrad, where the Nazi army that he was part of did vicious harm to the great city and to its brave people. But I did not take the photograph down, no, because it didn't matter to me what flag Yuri Vlasov carried. And on one of those trips, I remember, I met Yuri Vlasov once again. It was in Moscow during the filming of Red Heat, which was the first American movie allowed to film in Red Square. Now, he and I spent the whole day together. He was so thoughtful, so kind, and so smart, and, of course, very giving. He gave me this beautiful blue coffee cup, and ever since then, I've been drinking my coffee out of every morning.
There you go. It's just it's a long video. How many minutes was that video?
The total length of the video is 9 minutes and everything.
Copper Sky said, "Don't want war here, not after reading about the Satan II missile." Yeah, I've been telling people about that Satan II missile it can destroy us. Those are not Scud missiles. One can take out an area the size of a state and is hypersonic. Well, at least according to Russia, maybe they exaggerate. No, I've read about it from our Defense Department. It is legit. It is as legit as they say it is. Matter of fact, I first heard about it years ago, actually, from this broadcast we're watching now, Trunews. They're the first people I ever heard to mention this years ago. And that's what made me piqued my interest and made me start looking into it, because we kept being told that Russia can't do anything to us. They got a small economy and blah, blah, blah. But I've seen some of the technology they have. They have soldiers that literally can, they're machines that literally can, it's fueled off of eating people. It's crazy. Like, and this is not no like third world country we're talking about here. You seen what happened with Afghanistan, and we couldn't even take care of them. You know what I'm saying? What do you think we would do against Russia? It's crazy to even think that we can just just take them out like it's nothing.
And so I don't know any Russians that have the spare time to watch all of it.
But he's like, the propaganda here. My dad was an angry Nazi who hated Russians.
Yes.
Well, the Nazis did some pretty ugly things to the Russians, and that's why Putin is fighting the Nazis in Ukraine right now, Arnold.
Right. So put the math together there. And so
what is he doing?
Folks, you're watching an actor act. Remember that.
Yeah.
You're watching an actor act.
He's acting, and he's trying to demoralize the Russians who are fighting the Nazis.
Right. So he invokes his dead Nazi father here in this particular clip. But like I said, it was 9 minutes long. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but there is one that I definitely want you to watch here. This is number 6 for Control. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger delivering a message directly to Russian soldiers. Listen to what he has to say.
To the soldiers who are listening to this, remember that 11 million Russians have family connections to Ukraine. So every bullet you shoot a brother or a sister. Every bomb or every shell that falls is falling not on an enemy, but on a school, or a hospital, or a home. I know that the Russian people are not aware of such things are happening. So I urge the Russian people and the Russian soldiers in Ukraine to understand the propaganda and the disinformation that you are being told. I ask you to help me spread the truth. Let your fellow Russians know the human catastrophe that is happening in Ukraine. And to President Putin I say, you started this war. You're leading this war. You can stop this war.
So that was an actor urging foreign soldiers basically to revolt against their government.
Yes.
Have I got that right?
You got it.
Okay.
It's Nazi propaganda during a war.
And he said, there's a lot of propaganda and misinformation out there. You just watch some there. So.
As I was watching, I was thinking, in my lifetime, I mean, there's propaganda around us all the time. Any given day, there's propaganda. Sure. But I have seen some waves of propaganda. And when I say waves, it's when you're in a period of time when the propaganda is overwhelming and you dare not go against it.
The crazy thing is, I was writing a book about media propaganda. Pretty much, I'm like 95% finished writing it. I haven't really done anything to it in the last few months, but I was like 95% of the way finished writing this book. And all of this stuff is like hitting now all of a sudden. I wish I would have finished it and released it by now, but
where the general public accepts the propaganda and the propaganda machine revs up the emotions red hot, and if anybody refuses to accept the propaganda, they're ostracized by society.
Well, yeah, and take, for instance, the early months of the COVID pandemic.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So we're in this one right now, Ukraine. Then we went through 2 years of COVID propaganda. And if you dared to oppose it, you could lose your job.
Yes.
People lost their job for refusing to go along with the propaganda. Then we had the Trump is a Russian stooge propaganda. Every night on television, over and over and over, all day long on MSNBC and CNN and all the news networks and the New York Times and the Washington Post. It went on for 4 years.
Right.
Trump is a Russian stooge. Russia hacked the election. It was another wave of propaganda.
Which has been totally disproven. Totally
Yes.
disproven.
But the people who did it didn't go to prison for lying.
No.
Right? By the way, Donald Trump was impeached twice, but the second impeachment was over a phone call to Ukraine.
Yes.
They impeached him over a phone call to Ukraine. There's something in Ukraine
Because he asked for an investigation
of corruption.
Of corruption in Ukraine.
Involving the Bidens. Then you go back, past, COVID. you know, there was propaganda throughout the Obama years, but no major wave. The big wave came during the Bush years with the attack on Iraq.
Right.
And the vilification, the hatred of Muslims. It was revved up. Muslims want to kill us. Muslims want to destroy us.
And if you didn't hate Muslims, there was something wrong with you.
You were not a good American. And you know, we heard this again, and this time it was the Sean Hannitys, it was the people on Fox News and the various conservative outlets that were just driving every day this hatred of Muslims, hatred of Arabs, the need for war. We've got to bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb, and that's what we did. If you survived that wave of propaganda, you know, you were fortunate. I was attacked a lot by conservatives. You know, how dare you oppose President Bush? He's God's man in the White House, and why are you defending, you know, Saddam? I'm not defending Saddam Hussein. I'm just saying they're lying about the war.
Right.
There are no weapons of mass destruction there. This is all propaganda.
And so, all you did was ask, where are the weapons of mass destruction? Where are they?
And
that's a good question to ask. Right?
I would out the propaganda, like there would be Muslim terrorists that they would kill 3 or 4 times.
Right, the same guy.
Yeah. See, I've got a memory. And I would say, wait a minute, 2 years ago you killed
that
this
guy already.
Yeah. How many times can this guy die?
Yeah,
that was the kind of propaganda I saw. Then when you go back before that, it's Y2K.
Right.
Y2K was a worldwide propaganda operation by the West.
And then before that, you had Kosovo. And before that, I mean, you can just start stacking them up.
And then the earliest that I can remember in my life was the John F. Kennedy assassination. I was a kid, but I knew if you questioned it, you would be in trouble. This is the story. The Warren Commission. This is it. This is the narrative. Believe it. And there were people. People investigating the Kennedy assassination. Jim, what was his name? Garrett?
Jim Garrison.
Garrison, Louisiana. Man, they went after him. There was a long string of people, witnesses to the assassination, who died over a period of, 2 or 3 years. They just car wrecks and all kinds of stuff happened to them.
And you can follow that through the Bobby Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King one. I mean, it just went on and on and on and on. But in the most recent memory here, we have the Trump-Russia collusion narrative, and we have COVID. The same people that sold us the Trump collusion nonsense and the COVID pandemic nonsense are the very same ones selling us the Russia-Ukraine narrative that everyone's lapping up at the trough.
That's what
conservatives and liberals. Nothing brings Democrats and Republicans together like blowing something up.
Yes,
that's true.
So just be careful about what you're believing about this war in Ukraine, because I'm telling you, the Russians are there to take out the Nazis. That's the purpose that they're there. And if you don't look again, the woman in Canada, Freeland, the deputy prime minister under Trudeau, the woman who sees the funds donated for the Canadian truckers, the woman that wanted their bank, who made sure that their bank accounts were seized, who put truckers in jail. Her grandfather was a Ukrainian Nazi propaganda chief under Ukraine.
Copper Sky says someday Jackie Chan may deliver a message like this to us.
Under Hitler. And he after the war, he moved to Canada and changed his name to Freeland. His granddaughter is now the deputy prime minister of Canada. How are they getting in these places of power?
Ironic that the name is Freeland.
Yes.
When it's really Nazi land.
Laugh in your face. Laughing in your face. Look, I don't like isms. I don't like Nazism. I don't like Zionism. I don't like communism. I don't like socialism. I don't like any ism, because they take away my ability to think as a free man. And I oppose all of these isms. If somebody comes to to me peddling an ism, I send them packing. I don't want to hear their ism because it's mind control. And all these isms are actually just, they're just subsidiaries of the Illuminati that is working behind the scenes to bring about a Luciferian government. So when they can use Zionism, they use it. When they can use socialism, they use it. When they can use Nazism, they use it. They've created all these isms, just like they created cults. They created all these religious cults for
diversion.
For diversion. You know, you want to believe in a God? Yeah, we got a God for you. Just don't believe in Jesus.
What version of God do you need?
Yes.
We've got it right here on the shelf.
That's right.
We can pull it right off the shelf.
Just don't believe in Jesus.
God that'll fulfill every fantasy that you have. And so,
all right, the next one. This is Laura Logan, and bless her heart. She appeared on Real America's Voice, which is a conservative news channel on, I think, DirecTV. I think that's where it's at. I've never seen it, but I think that's where it's at. Don't know much about the channel, but Laura Logan appeared on their morning show, and the co-hosts were not prepared for her response. They asked her a question about Ukraine, thinking they were going to get the standard regurgitation of the deep state propaganda, and Laura Logan unloaded on them, and it was about 9 minutes. We've chopped this up into several segments, but you got to see it and got to hear it, and just watch the faces of the news presenters because they were speechless. They didn't know what to say. Here's the first clip.
I don't buy it for a second, Ed, I'll be honest with you. I really think that there's so much misinformation. We've never really seen anything like it. I mean, I've been covering wars now for 35 years, and I have never seen people with their nails done in the Ukrainian flag, right? I mean, we're being corralled into this box where we either have to hate Vladimir Putin and believe everything evil that's said about him and love Ukraine, and there's no in between. And that reminds me a lot of you're either, you know, a white supremacist, or you go with the Democrat narrative on everything under the sun. So Vladimir Putin knew exactly what he was doing when he went into Ukraine. The Russian military isn't perfect. They, for example, I've spoken to multiple defense specialists and intelligence specialists from a Defense Intelligence Agency who've studied the Russian military for years. They do have difficulty mounting complex air operations because they do very little training hours in comparison to, for example, the United States air assets, right, our fighter jet pilots. But Russia is not struggling. What Russia has done from the very beginning has been very strategic. They didn't go straight to Kiev. They went to all those bioweapons laboratories that are scattered all over the country. Some of them they built, so they know where they are. They've known where they are since the Soviet Union, because under the Defense Threat Reduction Program, we went in after the fall of the Soviet Union and supposedly turned those facilities from bioweapons labs into public health labs. Although, you know, these days it's hard to believe anything that our leaders tell us, because they've lied about COVID, they lied about Russia collusion, they lied about the Ukraine impeachment trial, and there's so much more going on in Ukraine that nobody is talking about. You see such dishonesty when it comes to the history of Ukraine. You see dishonesty when it comes to the Azov Battalion, which is funded by the US and NATO. I mean, you can find pictures of them online holding up the NATO flag and the swastika at the same time. Their own emblem contains the black sun of the occult, which was a Nazi SS emblem. And it also contains the sideways, you know, lightning insignia of the SS. I mean, this is on throughout the Ukrainian military. You can see that black sun of the occult on their body armor, even on the female soldiers who are paraded in front of the world as being, you know, such an example of Ukraine's independence and spirit and nobility. Even they are wearing the black sun of the occult.
You notice she's saying the occult.
Right, and Nazism was associated with the occult.
That is wild. That is wild. She really broke that down. I mean, that's a lot to unpack.
From the early days, Hitler was in the occult. There's no other way to describe it. And the current Nazis are in the occult, too. But she makes a couple good points in this. She has more to say about the connection with Nazis. you get all these different, you get Zelensky, you get all these members of parliament, they show up on Fox News and OAN and Newsmax and CNN and Bloomberg, and they've got the Ukrainian flag in the back, their hair is all fixed, their nails are all done and everything. They got great Wi-Fi and everything else. And no one questions that at all. You'll see video of the NATO flag and the Nazi flag, with a Nazi symbol on it in the same picture. And so she really calls them out. She goes a little bit deeper in this particular segment as she makes that occult connection with the Nazis.
The White House wants you to believe, well, this doesn't matter, it's just a small number of troops. It's not true. The Azov battalion has been murdering its way through eastern Ukraine.
Yeah.
We don't want to admit this. This was why Crimea voted for independence. This is why Crimea wanted to be with Russia. Because we in the media, in the Western media and in the West, won't acknowledge the reality of what's gone on. Western Ukraine backed the Nazis. It was a headquarters for the Nazi SS. The CIA under Allen Dulles actually gave immunity from prosecution to the Nazis of Ukraine from the Nuremberg trials. So there's a long history of the United States and our intelligence agencies funding and arming Nazis in Ukraine. These are not like new neo-Nazi groups that sprung up. These are the actual Nazis from the Second World War, who, if you go back to the Nuremberg trials, said that they were planning for a 1,000-year Reich. And so you have to really wonder as you look at this, when you know that the CIA sponsored the color revolution in Ukraine in 2013 and 14, that they selected Ukraine's leaders, go to Victoria Nuland's leaked phone conversation where she and the U.S. ambassador are deciding who can lead Ukraine. I mean, there's as much interference here as you could possibly imagine before you even get to Hunter Biden, Nancy Pelosi, John Kerry, and Mitt Romney, and all of their children who are employed, who earn millions from Ukrainian gas companies.
The news presenters there had this stunned look on their face.
Especially the blonde one.
They've never heard any of this before.
Looking at what did we get into here?
How do we?
They never heard any of this before. A lot of this stuff I do about the color revolution and all that. That's why when Hillary Clinton, when she lost the 2016 election, she was wearing that purple. It had to do with the color revolution. Copper Sky says, so they didn't go to the dark side of the moon. They just went to Ukraine. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly where they went to. Exactly where they went to. The Ukraine. And some sprinkled over there in Argentina too. I've heard.
So it was more like, how do we get out of it?
Ms. Logan goes a little bit further here in talking about Ukraine being the center of money laundering. Is that perhaps the reason why that NATO is so incentivized in trying to, make sure that Ukraine is a part of whatever plans they have for the future? So here's Ms. Logan again.
I don't like being lied to. And we're being lied to on an epic scale. When we're told your only choice is you have to be 100% with Zelensky, who's a puppet, who you can find on the internet in black stilettos and leather pants, with shirtless, doing a spoof Dancing with the Stars kind of entertainment video. That's a mock of a Ukrainian group that does this kind of satanic, occult type of music video. And I mean, Zelensky was selected, like so many of our leaders. And honestly, with big tech, and with election fraud these days, we don't know how many leaders all around the world have been selected for us and weren't actually voted in. But what we do know is that there are increasing problems with technology and the digitization of our world. Because look at what's happening with COVID. Look at what has happened globally. We are fighting the same battles all over the world. To pretend that this war is about Russia and Ukraine is just a barefaced lie. If Putin has been warning for 15 years that he is not going to stand by while the globalists take over the world, build bioweapons facilities and whatever else they're doing in Ukraine, Ukrainian oligarchs. Ukraine has been a center of money laundering for, many of the leaders in this country. For how long? Billions of US dollars have been laundered through Ukraine, and we say nothing about it. These are our tax dollars. I mean, before the impeachment trial, had you ever heard of anyone in the United States I mean, us bringing in foreign governments to the White House for anti-corruption training. I mean, does nobody question these things? Why do we not question them?
Why? Because there's a plan in place. That's why. And so,
who conducts the anti-corruption training at the White House? Is it Hunter Biden?
The corruption.
Oh, is it Hunter Biden? Is he doing the seminar?
One last clip here, and appreciate Miss Logan's boldness there. But she goes on to say, she first of all, recognizing that there is a deep state, but basically Ukraine is just a deep state sandbox out there. Watch this.
It's the deep state haven.
We have an idiot like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman who goes at the...
Before she get to that, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say about Vindman, who they turned into some type of hero. I seen him on Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's crazy. They turned this guy into a hero. But I forgot the point I was gonna make. Gosh, I'll just play this.
Impeachment trial and sits there as a lieutenant colonel. He didn't even make colonel. And he's telling the president of the United States what his policy should be. You have a traitor in the form of Maria Yovanovitch, who was Obama's ambassador, who's telling Ukrainian government officials, don't listen to the will of the American people. Don't listen to the election results. We are the true leaders of America. I mean, and then people object when the woman isn't even fired. She's given a cushy job for life at Georgetown University at the expense of the U.S. taxpayer. And we're told that the president of the United States cannot say to his foreign counterparts, you know, that we want you to look into something. But Joe Biden, he can withhold as much aid as he wants to. I mean, there's so much hypocrisy and dishonesty here. And Ukraine is at the center of it all. Go back to Russia collusion. Go to Alexander Chalupa. Go to Eric Karamella, the whistleblower who went to work for Adam Schiff, who wasn't really a whistleblower, and all those corrupt people in the deep state. And you know what? The deep state isn't a theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's an act.
This is a whole bunch of stuff from years ago that I reported on, and she bringing it back, and all this stuff is coming back to me. That's wild that she bringing all this stuff up, and it's all interconnected. And Ukraine is where they got, I think, a bunch of their servers. Got the Hillary Clinton servers are supposedly out there. Bunch of dirt out there. So much corruption in Ukraine, and this was like the corruption haven, and that's why it was so big, and that's why everyone pounced on and they impeached Trump over this, because they didn't want the corruption looked into. He told them to look into the corruption, and that's when they sicked the dogs on Trump. I mean, sicked them on him again, I should say.
Actual deep state. Look up the SES, the Senior Executive Service, because when that bureaucracy was ushered into law in the United States of America, that's when we got a bunch of unelected bureaucrats.
You can't fire them. You can't fire them at all.
Bureaucrats pulling the strings behind the scenes. And these are the people that keep lying to us.
So you just got a big dose of a lot of truth there. And she was mentioning names I'd forgotten about, the Ukrainian ambassador and others too, that if you really start tacking these names together, you really begin to see how it all fits.
Doc, why is Donald Trump backing this war? I mean, I want to say backing the war. He's backing Ukraine, and he already got burned in Ukraine. Why isn't he out here calling out the Nazis that are in Ukraine? Why isn't he calling out the Biden corruption in Ukraine? He ought to be taking advantage of this. Ukraine is in the center of the world's focus right now. Donald Trump ought to be talking about the Biden family was deeply involved in Ukrainian politics and business, and we've got to get to the bottom of what's going on in Ukraine.
Because if he does that, Rick, he's pro-Putin. And they'll just prove their argument from years ago. See? Yeah. He's just a stooge for Vladimir Putin.
So he's going to support war so that he looks like a man.
Yeah, because that's what men do. They blow up things, kill people. So, right? After all, he did it. I mean, missile strikes in Syria, Soleimani, you blow up things, kill people. That makes you a leader. So.
Hey, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll show you scenes from the massive rally that Vladimir Putin held today in Russia. You're watching True News.
Being prepared means thinking long term. Yes, you may have your immediate
fast forward this. All right, here we go.
American flags, lots of shouts of USA.
Well-run rallies.
Very, yes, choreographed, well-managed rallies. And so today, Vladimir Putin took a page out of Mr. Trump's playbook, and he held a rally, and the attendance wasn't 50,000, it was 203,000 people. I believe
Crazy.
it was about 90-some thousand people inside the arena and over 100,000 outside the arena. And we have some video from this rally today to give you an idea of what happened.
Здесь, вы знаете, мне приходят в голову слова из Священного Писания. Нет больше любви, как если бы кто-то отдал душу свою за друзей своих.
So you had a massive rally, patriotic Russians singing the national anthem, waving the Russian flag, and their president quoting Jesus Christ.
Yeah, John 15:13. So,
But that doesn't fit the narrative that we have in the U.S. that Russia is imploding. It's ready to become insolvent. The people are ready to revolt. That they're going to shoot Putin in the head while he's sleeping in the Kremlin. That doesn't look like what they're saying on Fox News and CNN.
not at all. It doesn't appear that the collapse is imminent like NATO and so many others had been hoping for.
Doc, what I see there is a nation pulling together in preparation for World War III. That's what I see. They're getting ready for the massive war. When you see that kind of outpouring in a country with the patriotism, the national anthem, the flags, they're getting ready. They're trying to get their people prepared for the Great War. This would be, World War II was the Great War.
For them, yes, the Great War.
This will be the greatest war. They know that it's coming.
Because this war, well, really their version of World War II, the Great War, was a war for survival. I mean, it really was for them. They had to go all in.
Because the Nazis invaded them.
Right. And the same thing's happening for them today, only the math and calculus is a lot different now than it was back in World War II. And the ideology is different. In World War II, you had a communist Russia. Today, you have a Russia that is a lot different. You have the leader of Russia quoting the Bible at a rally. Now, we can sit here and argue about where he is in his faith and everything, but can you imagine 70 years ago, 80 years ago during World War II, Stalin coming out and quoting the Bible? Of course not.
Absolutely not.
Well, it would not have happened.
It's no longer an atheist nation.
It would not have happened in the 1990s. Brezhnev and the various premiers of the Soviet Union, Gorbachev would not have quoted the Bible. This is in my lifetime. So we're now seeing a Russian president quote scripture. And we're showing you this video just to relay to you that there is a different story that's taking place on the other side of the world than what we're getting here. we are getting nothing but propaganda. There's no balanced reporting. And if you try to report both sides, try to have an intelligent, rational discussion,
call you a Russian
you're
agent.
immediately attacked.
Or to even question the narrative.
Yes.
You can't question it at all.
So which country is the fascist country?
The one that limits the freedom to be able to speak about something.
That's
and
right.
that's our current, the West, basically.
Doc, I read a story today. This is an interview that Sergei Lavrov conducted on Russia Today. Now, RT is banned in the United States now.
And in the UK as of today as well. So they revoked RT's license today in the UK. So
I have some transcripts from the interview. It was a television interview. Of course, it was all in Russian. There's Mr. Lavrov smiling again, and but he
sorry.
he said some very profound, interesting things that the people in the West need to hear to understand their perspective. The first one, he said, this is number 13. Moscow, he said, is ready to resume mutually beneficial cooperation with the West, but there are no more illusions that Western partners can be relied upon. Now Russia can only rely on itself and those allies who will remain next to it. So in this we see Lavrov is saying, we Russians have given up any hope that we could have a friendly, rational, peaceful existence, relationship, conversation with the United States and the Western Europe.
Right.
You can't rely on them. They don't tell the truth. We're just going to rely upon ourselves.
Goes on to say, Russia will not allow the West to continue pumping weapons into Ukraine. Now, listen to that carefully.
This is important.
Any such shipments on Ukrainian territory will become a legitimate target. So Western states cannot transfer Soviet or Russian missile defense systems to Kiev, which they are contemplating doing right now. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky previously requested, in particular, S-300 systems, since agreements on their use do not allow sending them to third countries.
Doc,
Now,
where would NATO get S-300s?
they got them from the former Warsaw Pact countries, and so.
But did they have S-300s then?
Well, and that's a great question. When I first heard this request yesterday, because I think Zelensky said it in, let's see, today's Friday, he said it Wednesday when he was doing the address to Congress, had asked for S-300 systems. And I thought, well, wait a minute, how long have S-300 systems been around? Have they been around since the Soviet days? And I wasn't sure of the...
Did Turkey donate them?
Well, Turkey has donated drones to Ukraine, a number of 50 military-grade drones.
Did American troops confiscate S-300s in Syria?
Now, that's a possibility too. And so...
it's just interesting. But the main thing, what we want to just see, is that Lavrov said today, Russia will not permit NATO to move weapons into Ukraine. They will become targets.
Right.
So today, you've heard it, the Russians are going to blow up the shipments of weapons and ammo and tanks and aircraft that NATO is shipping into Poland and other surrounding countries. The moment they cross the border into Ukraine, they're going to be blown up.
They're a target. Now, the next quote here gives an...
BBBB1112 said, wish we still had Trump there. Washburn Gaming said, that's war then.
Indication of what sort of timetable we're looking at for the Russians, and it looks like they're in for the long haul. He said, in particular, time is needed to get rid of the consequences of Western influence on Ukraine. The efforts of our Western colleagues, their attempts to make Ukraine anti-Russia, have been made for a long time, and they are deeply rooted in the Ukrainian mentality, especially among the younger generation who was born after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It will take time to get rid of this negative legacy. And so it's obvious from that the Russians intend to maintain a presence there for a while. So what is happening around Ukraine is the quintessence of the Western strategic course, namely to marginalize Russia, to contain it, to put an end to the development of Russia, and to reduce the role of Russia to zero in world politics, economics, sports, art, trade, science, and education. The United States is trying to restore a unipolar world, an American village, maybe an American saloon, where everyone dances to the tune of the strongest. Europe has practically abandoned attempts to maintain strategic autonomy. The United States convinced the Europeans that they know much better than the Europeans themselves what exactly is needed for the security and well-being of Europe.
Let's jump down to number 18.
So at the same time, Moscow is still ready to cooperate with everyone who is ready to do this on the basis of equality, on the basis of mutual respect, the search for a balance of interests, primarily countries that have not joined the United States. There are players who will never agree with the existence of the global village under the leadership of the sheriff from America. It's China, India, Brazil, Mexico.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Brazil and Mexico.
Right. I think that these are the countries that will not be pegged at all if Uncle Sam tells them to do something.
That's a very interesting statement from Lavrov. There are players who will never agree to be under the domination of a sheriff from America.
All right, I'm going to continue to play this, but I'm going to be in the background because the missus is here. So I'll still be in the chat, but I'm going to continue to play this in the background.
China, India, Brazil, Mexico. That tells me he's had conversations with the leaders of these countries.
Right.
And they're telling him, we're not going to play ball with the USA in the way that they're trying to dominate the world. One more quote from this article. This is number 19.
So Western sanctions against Russia are unprecedented, and this is not the end. The sanctions pressure will continue. They are also now threatening a fifth wave of sanctions. Maybe there will be another wave after that, but we're used to it. Moscow will survive these restrictive measures. It must be said that sanctions have always only strengthened us. The West is also waging an information war against Moscow, using methods of information terrorism, that's a new one, and involving publications that call themselves free. We know all the tricks that Western states use regarding information warfare. We have long understood that there is no such thing as an independent media. And in trying to stage an anti-Russian campaign on TikTok, Washington is essentially waging its own information war among children. This is an intention to brainwash them for life. It seems to me that this is dishonest and unworthy. If you want to participate in information competition, there must be some rules there. And remember, the White House brought in all these TikTok influencers and everything, and basically told them, tell everybody that the reason why we have high gas prices is because of Vladimir Putin. And so
it's interesting. He said the propagandists in America are targeting children.
Yes.
And they will warp their minds for life.
And so there ought to be rules about this. But when you're in information terrorism, there are no rules, right?
But this is what Christians need to understand. The same propagandists that Mr. Lavrov is referring to are also going after your children.
Yes.
They're warping their minds using information terrorism to take your children away from you. Some of you are wondering, my son, my daughter, you're thinking, I don't know what happened to my kids. They become leftists. They become statists. They do whatever the government tells them to do. I can't communicate with them anymore. Well, they got in their heads with information terrorism. That's what Lavrov is talking about. He's saying we are witnessing the West targeting children through social media to change their thinking, and these children will be anti-Russian their entire lives.
He also mentioned something else in there too, Rick, in that quote, sanctions only strengthen us. Mm-hmm. And that's been proven in the past by not only by Russia, but other countries as well, because what ends up happening is they have to develop new ways of communication, finance, and warfare whenever those restrictions are put in place. And that means that there is the possibility for something new to rise up that might be stronger than the existing system.
That's right. Very good point. I'm going to go through some headlines very quickly before we end. I'm not going to read the stories. There's way too much information. Wall Street Journal, how the United States, the European Union cut Russia off from the global economy. This is a very interesting story. I read it this morning on how
by them cutting Russia off from the global economy, what they're doing is they're pushing them towards China, which they're gonna come up. They already been working on their own system, and soon the U.S. is no longer gonna have the petrodollar. Our economy is gonna crash. I mean, I don't know why are they doing this. It makes, unless you want to crash the economy. That's the only rationale I can come up with. You do purposely trying to crash the economy.
Janet Yellen coordinated the Cancel Russia campaign.
Right.
Started last year.
Right. It's been months in the making. He didn't just suddenly pop up one day and say, let's do all this. They had the mechanisms in place months ago in order to make things happen now.
The next one, Yahoo News. Secret CIA training program in Ukraine helped Kiev prepare for Russian invasion.
Say it isn't so, Rick. The CIA was in Ukraine?
Well, Doc, yesterday I mentioned I saw an article about average citizens getting military combat training to fight the Russians. And I said, the photograph, the instructors had hoods over their faces.
Right.
Who could they be?
Maybe the CIA, right?
Or MI6, or maybe could be Mossad.
Well, now, exactly how long has the CIA been there? Well, let's wind the clock back to 2016. Ukrainians got secret CIA training after Russia's Crimea invasion in 2014. This report is saying.
So we're back now to the Obama years.
That's right.
When John McCain and Victoria Nuland, and that woman is back in the State Department again. Obama's running the Biden White House.
Right.
His people are in the Biden administration, and Victoria Nuland.
That's what I've been saying. That's why Obama is the first president to never leave Washington. He actually bought a house as soon as he left, because he is the one that's actually running this country behind the scenes. I've been saying it since he never left Washington. I was like, why wouldn't you leave? Why would you buy a house right down the road from the White House? Why would you buy offices out there? Why would you have a whole team out there in Washington? When most presidents, after they're done with their bid, they go, they retire, and they move on with their lives. You know what I'm saying? Some do humanitarian work like Jimmy Carter. But why is he still in D.C.? And this is why, because he's the one really running the country.
Orchestrated the revolution in Ukraine 2013-2014. So now we see this story from the New York Post, that the Ukrainians got secret CIA training after the U.S.-sponsored revolution in Ukraine.
And let's wind it back just a little bit further.
And who was the vice president of the United States in 2014?
Joe Biden. So.
And where was his son in 2014?
Ukraine. Making deals. So this is from Forbes in 2014, April 2014, okay? So look at this headline here. When Rick says it's the Obama team that's running operations there, look at this. April 2014, why CIA Director Brennan visited Kiev. In Ukraine, the covert war has begun.
And just a reminder, Brennan's grandfather was a member of the Communist Party. No, take it back. Brennan voted for a communist.
Right.
And that came out in his confirmation hearing. So imagine,
so he's a communist.
The CIA director was questioned, well, when you were young, why did you vote for communists? But he got
it passed.
He got passed, and he was put into power. And so who ran the
You know, McCarthy. I think McCarthy was right. That McCarthyism stuff, the communists in the government, when they was trying to weed them out of government, I think McCarthy was right.
Anti-Trump operation. There he is right there. He's one of them. During the 4 years of Russia colluded, Russia hacked the elections. Trump is a Russian stooge. That man right there was running that operation.
And so when Laura Logan is talking about Ukraine being a deep state, playground, a deep state sandbox, it has been for a long time, folks.
Well, now we're talking about corruption. Yesterday, the New York Times discovered, this is amazing, the New York Times discovered that the Hunter Biden laptop story is real. It's true. I guess hell froze over yesterday.
So a comprehensive report about the ongoing federal probe into Hunter Biden's tax filing.
And I've done several reports on this story. I think maybe two or three stories on this. And you can check that out on my playlist.
Published by the New York Times on Wednesday night confirmed the existence of the first son's infamous laptop. Well, blow me down, Rick. It was real after all, wasn't it?
That's right. Another New York Post. You got to let the New York Post. They're blowing their own horn. They should. They were out there in 2020 reporting the truth. They got their stories pulled down off Twitter. They got deplatformed,
but not the Times.
So here's another one from New York Post yesterday. Now that Joe Biden's president, the Times finally admits Hunter's laptop is real.
And going back to 2020 here, this is from October 2020. This is Politico. This is what they were saying in October 2020.
2 years ago.
Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation. Dozens of them, Rick, former intelligence officials say.
All right, just keep this up here. The same news outlets in America that 2 years ago lied and lied and lied and lied all through the 2020 election and said anybody who believes this Hunter Biden laptop story is believing Russian propaganda.
Yes.
They are the same people lying to you today about what Putin is doing in Ukraine.
And lied for 2 years during COVID. In fact, let's just show you what they were saying back in October 2020. Here's a compilation of all the talking heads talking about the Russian disinformation of the laptop.
Biden's secret emails.
A really fishy story.
The Post claimed that the emails were found on a laptop computer that was brought to a repair shop in Delaware in the spring of 2019.
The FBI is now investigating whether those alleged Hunter Biden emails are actually connected to a larger foreign intelligence operation.
They may be related to a foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence operation.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
The information found on the laptop may be part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Part of a Russian disinformation effort.
Described by many intelligence experts as having hallmarks.
All the hallmarks
of a Russian
disinformation.
Russian disinformation.
Disinformation campaign.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
But now the New York Times says,
oh, shucks, it is real.
That is Hunter Biden's laptop, which means that the emails are real.
Yes.
And if the emails are real, Joe Biden is a crook. The President of the United States is a crook and should be handcuffed if you had an FBI that's not corrupt. It's not going to happen because the FBI is corrupt.
Right.
The prosecutors are corrupt. The judges are corrupt. We live in a corrupt country, and yet we're told that other countries
are really bad.
And they have to be attacked so that we can spread American-style democracy to them, and they could be free and independent like we are here.
But once again, just going back through this for our audience, these people that were selling us the Russian disinformation campaign about the laptop and everything back in 2020 are the same ones selling the current disinformation about Russia and Ukraine. They're the same people. They're selling the same, empty shell of information there.
But the crazy thing is that some of the so-called conservative media, like Fox News and so forth, that was not going along with the Russian story 2 years ago, they're cooperating with the same propagandists this time.
Oh yeah, that's a bus they can ride on, isn't it?
You better believe it. Hey, somebody asked Jen Psaki at the White House yesterday, do you still stand by your claim that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian propaganda? Because that's what
I played this video earlier today when I was streaming, when I was gaming. It was pretty funny. Like, Jen Psaki could not, and she wouldn't. They brought it up on how she said it was Russian disinformation. What do you say about it now? And she wouldn't basically respond to it. It's pretty.
What she said, and I believe Joe Biden himself alluded to it.
He did.
So we've got her response. Let's watch it.
And if I may, you asked about Hunter Biden's laptop. You also, in October 2020, dismissed it as Russian disinformation. Do you stand by that assessment?
Again, I'd point you to the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's representatives. I'm a spokesperson for the United States. He doesn't work for the United States.
In other words, I ain't saying nothing now. And
well, she talked about it in 2020.
Right, she tweeted about it in 2020. She said, this laptop story is Russian disinformation. When Joe Biden was asked about it, it was Russian disinformation. But now that the laptop's real, we'll all refer you to the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's representatives on this.
I can't imagine having a job where I'm a professional liar. And that's what she is. She's a professional liar.
She's a propagandist.
Yes, that's the same thing. Professional liar, propagandist. I'm going to go through a couple more stories before we wrap it up and go home for the weekend. CNBC, mother of Hunter Biden's child, testified in tax probe. Lawyer handed over financial records. Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'll get to the gist of it. This go to number 38 for control.
And this isn't a wife, an ex-wife. This was the
baby mama.
Yes, but wasn't she the was she the stripper or
the assistant? I forget.
Yeah,
she got a stripper pregnant and got an assistant pregnant. So Hunter Biden is very prolific, I guess. But Lancaster said he and Roberts were interviewed by an assistant U.S. attorney, an FBI agent, and an IRS agent, one that carries a badge and a gun, more than a year ago about Biden in Little Rock, Arkansas, talking about Hunter Biden, where Lancaster practices law. I expect him to be indicted, the lawyer said about Biden. Just based on what I saw in his financial records, I would be surprised if he's not indicted. And so there's enough at least.
I was talking the whole time and it was muted. My fault. They now know that the emails are real. The Hunter Biden laptop thing is real, and he's being indicted. They said he's going to be indicted on it. I don't think he is. He's the president of the United States' son. There's no way he's gonna get into any trouble over any of this. And I wouldn't hold my breath. At
least the attorney for Roberts there, Roberts is the young lady who has the baby, and that there was, and the reason why they were even looking at the records is they were asking for financial support for her and for the child. Mm-hmm. And so these financial records got opened up, and then as a result the FBI and the IRS got involved as well. And so anyway, that's a drama that once again we were told there's nothing to look at in Hunter Biden's finances. He's a Boy Scout, straight and narrow. He's Beau Biden's brother. He couldn't do nothing wrong, right? But obviously there's enough to cause questions that he may very well be indicted.
He's Joe Biden's troubled child. but Joe Biden made him that way. I mean, Hunter Biden's a grown man. He has to take responsibility for his actions. But the sad story is his father, Joe Biden, made him the way he is. His father pimped him out.
Yes.
Made him a corrupt person to bring the money home to the Biden family. One more story, New York Times. Hunter Biden paid tax bill, but broad federal investigation continues. This is the story published by the New York Times, in which the grand old lady, the Times, admitted the laptop is real and the emails are real.
Right.
It's quite a story.
Interesting on this, Rick, it says, as they dig down into that story, that Biden took out $1 million loan to pay the tax bill, right? But that doesn't necessarily absolve him of the tax charges that are against him. Because the grand jury that sees the tax charges, they don't have any access to whether or not he paid the tax bill.
There's two things here. Yeah, so he won't be indicted for tax evasion.
Right.
And you say, well, we paid the tax. Okay. The second thing is it's an attempt to make it appear he's trying to amend his ways. He's trying to clean up his act. Yeah, I did some bad stuff, but now I see the light and I want to pay my taxes. And I will be shocked if he gets indicted. I'm sorry. The
only way I see him being indicted is if something happens to Joe Biden. That would be the only thing. Nothing is going to happen to Hunter Biden.
I don't think anything's going to happen.
And the reason why is because of Ukraine.
If Donald Trump was in the White House, he wouldn't be indicted.
He wasn't, was he?
He wasn't, because Attorney General Barr, made sure nothing happened. Because every Attorney General Donald Trump appointed did nothing against corruption.
And you're absolutely right.
That's true. I was so disappointed by Jeff Sessions. I thought Sessions, because he talked a good game when he had first came in there, and he went in there and the system corrupted him. I think they had something on Sessions, because I really had high hopes of him really taking it to Hillary Clinton when Trump got in, and Sessions didn't do it. He didn't do anything.
You're right. They did nothing.
President Trump was frustrated, but he's the one who appointed them. That's the part I could never figure out. Why did he keep appointing people who disappointed him? He appointed disappointers. That's a book right there. We're going to go home. Speaking of books, I encourage you to get this one, all right? This is a good one. I'm telling you, this is a good book. It will change your thinking about the last day, the very final day when Jesus Christ comes back. There is so much revelation in this book. I'm going to produce a video course that is going to be available in a couple months. But right now, you can get the printed copy.
I urge y'all to get that book there. I know I am. I thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And also check out my link tree that's in the description. That has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. Also has a link to my merch store where I have Let's Go Brandon t-shirts, I Will Not Comply t-shirts, a whole bunch of different types of t-shirts. And each t-shirt you purchase, it goes to fund what we're doing here. It's all done here by hand by my lovely wife. Also, check out democrepublics.com where I put up articles all the time and all types of great information. Until next time, peace.